first wave of immigrants to the United States from Asia arrived as the result of discovery of gold that led to the 1849 California gold rush. In the 1860s, Chinese workers built much of the western half of the Transcontinental Railroad line. Anti-Chinese sentiment in the late 19th century, however, led to riots in California and calls for a ban on Chinese immigration. In response, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which banned any new immigration of Chinese workers into the United States, a prohibition that remained in place until World War II, when China was an ally of the United States. Opposition also arose to immigrants from Japan. Legislatures in Western states passed laws banning interracial marriages and excluding Japanese Americans from public facilities, such as restaurants. In 1906, the school board in San Francisco decided to place all Asian children in a segregated school. The decision created a diplomatic crisis with Japan. 2 years later, President Theodore Roosevelt negotiated with Japan the Gentleman's Agreement, under which Japan agreed to stop Japanese workers from emigrating to the United States. In return, Roosevelt promised to persuade the San Francisco School Board not to segregate Japanese students. According to a federal law from 1790, only free white persons could become naturalized citizens. Thus, Asian immigrants were not eligible to become U.S. citizens. In 2 rulings in the 1920s, the Supreme Court upheld the ban on naturalization of Asian immigrants. Still more, a wave of anti-immigrant sentiment led to changes in the immigration laws in the 1920s. Among other provisions, the 1924 National Origins Act banned the immigration of persons ineligible to become citizens, thus blocking immigration from Asia. The 1941 Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor prompted the United States to declare war against Japan and created hysteria in the country about the loyalties of Japanese in America. Soon after, on February 9, 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, which gave the United States military sweeping authority to designate areas from which any or all persons may be excluded. The order was used to create an exclusion zone along the West Coast and to force Japanese Americans from their homes on the West Coast into internment camps such as Manzanar in California and as far east as Rower in Arkansas. As a result of this order, some 112,000 Japanese Americans, many of them U.S. citizens by birth, were forced to leave their homes and sell their businesses. Men, women, and children remained in these camps essentially for the duration of the war, living under armed guard. The executive order was challenged in court. The result was Korematsu versus United States, a 1944 Supreme Court decision that declared the Japanese American relocation justified by the war and thus constitutional. New immigration laws in 1952 and 1965 lifted many of the restrictions on immigration from Asia and allowed Asians to become naturalized citizens. Immigration from Asia increased in the following decades. In the 21st century, illegal immigration from Asia has increased, and undocumented immigrants from Asia are the second largest group after Latinos.